Next up is a picture taken in 1978 at the Burbank Starlight Amphitheater with Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What caused you to come on stage that night?
Well, I am always motivated by the Spirit. And whatsoever the Spirit say do, I do. With a strong nature, without doubt.
Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. We're taking a look at the night Bob Marley and Peter Tosh reconciled. The breakup of the Wailers in 1973 is one of the most intriguing stories in the history of reggae music and one of the landmark examples of the natural hazards of the music business. The Wailers was a group that started out as friends growing up in Trenchtown with a binding love for music in 1959. And in 4 years, they became the hottest group in Jamaica with #1 singles and albums tearing up the charts. 10 years after, the Wailers were not only the biggest band on the island, but were signed to a major international label and were on the brink of global megastardom when things began to unravel. Bunny Wailer left the group in 1973, followed by Peter Tosh. Their growls boiled down to the seeming promotion of Bob Marley as their boss by their new label, Island Records. And while Bunny silently eased himself out of the group by refusing to go on tour, Peter's exit was reflective of his radical temperament. During a promotional tour for their 1973 album Burning, tensions between Bob and Peter boiled over backstage after a show in England and descended into a quarrel and a fist fight. And after both men were separated, Peter quit the band on the spot, leaving Bob to continue alone. The three men pursued solo careers after that were all successful. Bunny's relationship with Bob remained smooth despite the circumstances at Island Records, but that between Bob and Peter was on the surface polite, but there were strong undercurrents of acrimony and bitterness between both men. While they were all successful solo artists, Bob, who Peter had taught to play the guitar, was now a global megastar, and this stoked already existing tensions between both men. Over the years, both men released songs that fans and critics alike strongly believe were aimed at each other, such as Bob's Who the Cap Fits and Tosh's I'm the Toughest. The Wailers were called upon to perform in 2 shows for charity in 1974 and 1975, but in each case, they had to be convinced and cajoled to come together on the same stage again. And if we're being frank, those 2 performances can't be described as genuine reunions of Peter and Bob. But in 1978, both men would reconcile in a public show of brotherhood that excited onlookers and marked the end of a 7-year feud. This wonderful reconciliation took place during the North American leg of the Kaya album tour and also during the US leg of the Rolling Stones 1978 tour. Peter by then had been signed as the first artist on legendary rock group the Rolling Stones record label and was opening act for the band on their tour of the US. And as Jah would orchestrate it, the paths of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh would cross when their respective tours passed through California at the same time. Bob Marley and the Wailers were slated to perform a series of dates in the US before heading over to Europe. The last leg of gigs were 6 concerts in California, including a show in Burbank. The show held at the Burbank Starlight Amphitheater. The show was incredible, with electric performances and an ecstatic crowd, with lots of celebrities in attendance, like Diana Ross and Mick Jagger. Tosh, who had been invited to this concert, arrived as Bob was wrapping up his show for the night and finishing his last song. The crowd roared for an encore, and of all the songs Bob could have picked, he began to perform Get Up, Stand Up, a song that had verses for Bob and Peter. As Bob sang his verse on the track, Tosh was inspired to join Bob on stage, and as Bob was skanking across the stage with massive strides, Tosh suddenly appeared as his own verse on the song was about to come in. Peter stunned Bob Marley and the crowd as he appeared on stage from nowhere, grabbed the microphone, and began to sing his own part on the song. Bob was in ecstasy and broke into a huge smile, with delight written all over his face. Peter delivered his verse excellently with such smooth grace that it was hard to imagine that the whole thing wasn't planned. The crowd went crazy after the performance as both men hugged and acted as if they had never been separated. After all the bitterness and rivalry from years past, it was unbelievable to see that both men still had love for each other. Backstage, both men clapped their hands and Peter said loudly, "Boy, the Pope feel that one." It was an excellent end to a magical evening. The 2 childhood friends parted that evening, with Bob traveling onward to Europe to continue his tour, while Tosh traveled to Anaheim, where he would perform as opening act for the Rolling Stones at the Anaheim Stadium the next day. Peter was inspired by the events to write a song called Here We Are Together Again that he planned for himself, Bob and Bunny to perform and record one day. Bob and Bunny were excited at the idea, but it never materialized until Bob died. It would have been a great record from a more mature, seasoned Wailers coming together to make music again on their own terms. We made a full video on the breakup of the Wailers and the Tosh Marley rivalry, so you can check it out on the link on the screen or the pinned comments below. So thank you for watching this video. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until the next time, Jah bless.